Stop asking for money. Pointing a manicured finger directly at me, my sister screamed the accusation across the Thanksgiving table. Gasps echoed around the dining room, and a look of pure disgust washed over my dad's face. The sickest part of the entire spectacle, however, was that I wasn't the broke one. I was the person secretly paying off her $40,000 credit card debt. In our family, there was a very clear, unspoken hierarchy. My older sister, Holly, was the undisputed princess of the household. She was the high school homecoming queen, the sorority president, the one who married a wealthy real estate developer named Ben in a lavish ceremony that my parents, Arthur and Linda, happily remortgaged their house to pay for. Holly's life was a meticulously curated Instagram feed of aesthetic lattes, European vacations, and designer handbags. Then there was me, Harper, the dependable, quiet, and fiercely independent younger sister. I was the one who went to a state college, got a practical degree in accounting, and worked a steady, unglamorous corporate job. My parents loved me, of course, but I was the foundation of the house, while Holly was the glittering chandelier. You don't notice the foundation until it cracks. The nightmare started 2 years ago, on a rainy Tuesday night in November. I was sitting in my modest one-bedroom apartment, eating leftover pasta, when there was a frantic, relentless pounding on my door. When I opened it, Holly pushed past me. She was hyperventilating, her mascara smeared down her cheeks, her designer trench coat soaked from the rain. I had never seen her look so unraveled. "He's going to leave me, Harper," she sobbed, collapsing onto my cheap IKEA sofa. "Ben is going to divorce me, and Dad is going to disown me." I immediately went into crisis mode. I made her tea, wrapped her in a blanket, and spent the next hour coaxing the truth out of her. Between gasping sobs, the ugly reality spilled out. Holly had a secret, a $40,000 secret. She opened her phone and pulled up a banking app, her hands shaking so violently I had to hold her wrists to read the screen. It was a platinum credit card in her name, completely maxed out. The balance was exactly $41,250. "How did this happen?" I whispered, staring at the screen in pure disbelief. "Ben made mid-six figures. My parents gave her generous checks for every birthday and holiday. It just sneaked up on me," she cried, hiding her face in her hands. "Ben put me on a strict budget last year because we're supposed to be saving for a summer house in Nantucket. But I couldn't keep up appearances, Harper. The girls' trips, the spa days, the charity galas. If I didn't show up in the right clothes, they'd talk. And then I got into some boutique debt, and I took out a high-interest personal card to cover it, and the interest just compounded. You have to tell Ben," I said firmly. "He's your husband. He has the money to wipe this out tomorrow." Holly dropped to her knees. Literally, on my cheap rug. She grabbed my hands, her nails digging into my skin. "You know how Ben is about finances. He's obsessed with credit scores and debt-to-income ratios. He made me sign a prenup with a financial infidelity clause. If he finds out I hid this from him, he will divorce me. I'll lose the house, the lifestyle, everything. And Dad would be so prize-dimmed. You know he prides himself on raising financially responsible kids. He'd cut me out of the trust." She looked up at me, her eyes wide and desperate. "You're an accountant, Harper. You have excellent credit. You have savings. Please, take out a consolidation loan. Pay this off so the card is closed before Ben does our annual financial review next month. I swear to you on my life, I will pay you back every single month. I'll give you my allowance from Ben. Just save my marriage, please." I should have said no. Any rational person would have said no. But this was my big sister, the one who used to hold my hand when crossing the street, the one my parents adored. The thought of my family fracturing, of Holly going through a messy, public divorce, broke my heart. Against every professional and personal instinct I possessed, I agreed. The next week, I liquidated my $15,000 emergency savings to take a massive chunk out of the balance. For the remaining $26,000, I took out a high-interest personal loan under my name. I paid off her platinum card, closed the account, and saved her marriage. Our agreement was simple. Holly would pay me $1,200 on the first of every month until the debt was cleared. For the first 3 months, she did. The money appeared in my account right on time, but by month 4, the excuses started. "Ben is watching the checking account too closely this month, Harper. I can only send you $400. I had to buy a bridesmaid dress for Jessica's wedding. I literally have nothing left. Can you cover my half this month? I promise I'll make it up to you next month. Next month never came. Soon, she stopped paying altogether, but the bank still expected its money. To keep my own credit from tanking, I had to take on the payments myself. I stopped going out with my friends. I canceled my gym membership, my streaming services, and my vacation plans. I started buying my clothes at thrift stores and eating rice and beans 4 nights a week. I even took on a remote bookkeeping gig on weekends just to keep my head above water. Meanwhile, Holly's Instagram remained a shrine to luxury. While I was patching a hole in my winter boots with superglue, she was posting photos of her new $3,000 Prada ski suit in Aspen. Whenever I texted her begging for her monthly payment, she would leave me on red or gaslight me, saying, "You're single and have zero responsibilities, Harper. You don't understand the pressure of maintaining a marriage in my social circle. I'll get you the money when things calm down." I was drowning, keeping her afloat, and my breaking point was rapidly approaching. 2 years into our arrangement, my life was a shell of what it used to be. The constant financial stress had given me chronic insomnia. My 2008 Honda Civic was sputtering and on its last legs, desperately needing a $500 alternator replacement that I absolutely could not afford. I had exactly $42 in my checking account the week of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was always a massive production at my parents' sprawling colonial home in Connecticut. Aunt Carol, Uncle Greg, and a half-dozen other relatives were flying in. I drove up on Thursday morning, my car violently shaking every time I hit 50 miles an hour on the highway. I parked my rusted, faded blue Civic at the very end of my parents' pristine circular driveway, hoping nobody would notice the small pool of oil leaking from the undercarriage. I walked into the house, immediately overwhelmed by the smell of roasting turkey, sage stuffing, and the expensive diptyque candles my mother loved. "Harper, sweetheart!" My mother, Linda, emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an artisanal linen apron. She kissed my cheek, then pulled back, her brow furrowing. "You look exhausted, honey. Are you not sleeping? And that sweater. Isn't that from college?" "I'm fine, Mom. Just working hard," I deflected, forcing a smile. An hour later, the front door burst open, and in walked the golden couple, Holly and Ben. Ben looked like he had stepped out of a Ralph Lauren catalog, and Holly was glowing. She was wearing a stunning cashmere wrap, knee-high leather boots that I recognized as Saint Laurent, and on her wrist, a brand-new, gleaming gold Cartier love bracelet. My stomach violently dropped. That bracelet cost at least $7,000. As everyone swarmed them with hugs and compliments, I felt a hot flash of pure rage. I waited until Ben was roped into a conversation about golf with Uncle Greg and Dad in the living room. Then I grabbed Holly's elbow and practically dragged her into the walk-in pantry. "What are you doing?" she hissed, yanking her arm away and smoothing her cashmere wrap. "What am I doing?" I whispered furiously, my voice trembling. "Holly, my car is literally dying in the driveway. I couldn't afford groceries this week. I need the $1,200 for this month's loan payment. Actually, I need more than that, because you haven't paid me in 6 months. And you show up wearing a Cartier bracelet?" Holly rolled her eyes, crossing her arms defensively. "Oh my God, Harper, keep your voice down. Ben bought me the bracelet for our anniversary. What was I supposed to do? Tell him to return it and give me cash? That's incredibly tacky." "I don't care if it's tacky," I shot back, tears of sheer frustration pricking my eyes. "I am drowning. You owe me $30,000 still. I need $500 today so my car doesn't completely die on the drive home." Holly's expression hardened into a look of cold condescension. "You are being so dramatic. Look, I don't have cash right now. My assets are tied up. If you're so desperate, just ask Dad for a loan. I am not letting you ruin my holiday with your terrible energy." Before I could respond, she pushed past me, grabbed a bottle of Pinot Noir from the shelf, and breezed back out to the party, leaving me standing in the dark pantry, trembling with a mix of fury and despair. At 4 p.m., we all sat down at the massive mahogany dining table. The wine was flowing, the crystal glasses clinking. I sat silently, picking at my turkey, trying to figure out how I was going to afford the tow truck I inevitably was going to need. "So, Harper," Uncle Greg boomed from across the table, carving himself another slice of ham. I saw your little blue bullet out in the driveway. Thing looks like it's been through a war zone. When are you going to upgrade? You're almost 30, kiddo. Time for a big girl car. The table went quiet, waiting for my answer. My dad, Arthur, sighed from the head of the table. I've offered to help her with a down payment, Greg, but Harper insists on being stubborn. Though, frankly, she should have the savings for it by now. I don't know where her paycheck goes. I felt my face burn red hot. I looked across the table at Holly. She was sipping her wine, a slight smug smirk on her lips. She was enjoying this. She loved playing the successful older sister while everyone looked down on me. Something inside me snapped. A quiet, terrifying clarity washed over my brain. Actually, Dad, I said, my voice eerily calm, cutting through the ambient noise. I don't have the savings for a car right now. I've had some unexpected major expenses. I looked directly at Holly. Holly, since Uncle Greg brought it up, do you think you could finally spot me that $500 you owe me? Just to fix my alternator? I didn't expose the whole $40,000. I gave her a chance, a tiny $500 lifeline. If she had just nodded and said, "Sure, I'll transfer it later," it would have been fine. Instead, she chose to detonate. Holly slammed her crystal wine glass down on the table so hard, the stem nearly snapped. She stood up, her chair screeching violently against the hardwood floor. "I am so sick of this," she screamed, pointing her manicured, Cartier-adorned wrist right at my face. "Stop asking for money." The entire table froze. Aunt Carol gasped, her fork dropping onto her china plate with a loud clatter. Holly didn't stop. She leaned over the turkey, tears of fake, theatrical frustration welling in her eyes. "Every time I see you, Harper, you are begging me for handouts. Holly, pay for my car. Holly, help me with rent. I am not your personal ATM. Ben and I work hard for our money, and I am exhausted from constantly subsidizing your pathetic, disorganized life." I stared at her, genuinely paralyzed by the audacity. She was doubling down. She was throwing me to the wolves to protect her own image. Ben put a comforting hand on Holly's waist, looking at me with deep disappointment. "Harper, it's true. Holly's been very stressed about your financial demands. We want to support you, but you need to learn to budget your own salary." "My financial demands?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. My dad stood up, his face dark red with anger. Not at Holly, at me. "Harper Elise," my dad barked, his voice echoing in the large dining room. "I am profoundly disappointed in you. To badger your sister for money at the Thanksgiving table? To leech off her marriage? You are 28 years old. It is incredibly tacky and irresponsible. You owe your sister an apology right now." I looked around the table. My mother looked embarrassed. Uncle Greg was staring at his plate. Ben looked self-righteous. And Holly was looking down, dabbing her dry eyes with a linen napkin, playing the perfect, put-upon victim. For 2 years, I had eaten rice and beans. I had worn sweaters with holes in the sleeves. I had lost sleep, lost friends, lost my savings, all to protect this woman from the consequences of her own superficial vanity. And she had just humiliated me in front of everyone I loved, painting me as a parasite to cover her tracks. My hands, which had been trembling all day, suddenly went completely still. "An apology," I said softly, nodding. "Right. I didn't stand up." I simply reached down to the floor, unzipped my worn-out faux leather tote bag, and felt the thick manila envelope I had brought with me. I had packed it purely out of a paranoid instinct before leaving my apartment just in case I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't going crazy. I didn't stand up. I simply reached down to the floor, unzipped my worn-out faux leather tote bag, and felt the thick manila envelope I had brought with me. I had packed it purely out of a paranoid instinct before leaving my apartment, just in case I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't going crazy. Now, pulling it out and placing it on the pristine white tablecloth, it felt like I was disarming a bomb. Or rather, arming one. "You know, Holly," I said, my voice shockingly steady, slicing through the heavy, awkward silence of the dining room. "You are absolutely right. You are not my ATM. In fact, it is the exact opposite. I am your bank. And unfortunately for you, your account is severely delinquent." My dad slammed his hand on the table. "Harper, that is enough. Stop this nonsense right now." "No, Arthur. Let her speak." Ben intervened. his brow furrowed. He was staring at the manila envelope, his corporate instincts suddenly kicking in. He recognized a paper trail when he saw one. I unclasped the metal prongs of the envelope. 2 years ago, in November, Holly showed up at my apartment in the middle of a torrential downpour. She was sobbing, terrified that Ben was going to divorce her. Ben physically recoiled, his eyes darting to his wife. "Divorce you? What are you talking about?" Holly's fake tears vanished instantly, replaced by sheer, unadulterated panic. The color completely drained from her perfectly bronzed face. "Harper, stop," she hissed, her voice trembling. "Don't do this. You're ruining Thanksgiving." "You ruined my life for 2 years," I replied coldly. I pulled out the first stack of papers and slid them across the mahogany table, directly in front of Ben. Holly came to me because she had secretly maxed out a high-interest platinum credit card. The balance was exactly $41,250. She knew about the financial infidelity clause in your prenup, Ben. She knew if you found out she was hiding debt, you'd leave her. A collective gasp echoed through the room. Aunt Carol clutched her pearls, literally clutched them. My mother covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes wide with horror. "That is a disgusting lie," Holly shrieked, standing up so fast her chair tipped backward and crashed onto the floor. "Ben, she's lying. She's jealous of me. She's always been jealous. She faked those." Ben didn't look at her. He was staring at the top page. I had printed out the original credit card statement. "Account holder, Holly." Ben read aloud, his voice dropping an octave, completely devoid of emotion. He flipped to the second page. Balance, $41,250. "Those are photoshopped," Holly screamed, lunging across the table to grab the papers, knocking over a crystal gravy boat. The brown liquid spilled across the white linen, staining it like a dark, ugly truth. Ben stood up, catching her wrist in midair. His grip was firm, his face a mask of cold fury. "Sit down, Holly," he commanded. He didn't yell, but the quiet menace in his tone made my sister collapse back into a different chair, sobbing hysterically. "I didn't have 40 grand lying around," I continued, addressing my stunned father, who was staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "I drained my $15,000 emergency savings, and I took out a high-interest personal loan for the remaining $26,000. I paid off the card so Ben wouldn't find out during their end-of-year financial review. Holly promised to pay me $1,200 a month." I slid the next stack of papers across the table. It was a printed spreadsheet, cross-referenced with my bank statements. "She made 3 payments," I said, my voice finally cracking under the weight of the memories. And then she stopped. "For the last year and a half, I have been making the loan payments entirely by myself to save my own credit score. I haven't bought new clothes. I haven't gone on vacation. I took a second job. My car is dying in your driveway because I can't afford a $500 repair. I am broke, Dad, because I was secretly subsidizing Holly's luxury lifestyle to protect her marriage." My father's face went from crimson red to a sickly pale gray. He looked at the spreadsheet, then at the bank statements. The math was undeniable. The proof was absolute. "Holly," my dad whispered, his voice cracking, Is this true?" Holly couldn't speak. She just sat there, her face buried in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. The golden child's glittering facade had completely shattered, leaving behind nothing but cheap, tarnished metal. "But wait," Ben said, his eyes scanning the original credit card statement again. The room fell dead silent, the only sound the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Ben's expression shifted from betrayal to deep, analytical confusion. "Harper, you said she ran up this debt on spa days and clothes and girls' trips?" "That's what she told me," I said, frowning. "That's not what these charges are," Ben said, his voice turning to ice. He looked up, his eyes boring into Holly's skull. "There are 3 separate charges here for the St. Regis Hotel downtown. We live 20 minutes from downtown. Why would you need a luxury hotel room on a Tuesday afternoon?" Holly's head snapped up, pure terror in her eyes. "Ben, And this," Ben interrupted, his finger trembling as he pointed at another line item. $8,000 at a boutique men's watchmaker in Soho? I don't wear watches. Who is Cameron, Holly?" The silence that followed was absolute. It was suffocating. I felt a cold chill wash over me, a twist I hadn't even seen coming. Holly hadn't just been buying Prada ski suits and aesthetic lattes. She had been funding a secret double life. "Who is Cameron?" Ben roared, his voice shaking the crystal glasses on the table. Holly broke. "He was my personal trainer," she wailed, hyperventilating. "It meant nothing, Ben. It was just a stupid phase. I was lonely. You were always working." "Get out," Ben said. "Ben, please." "Get out of my sight," he bellowed, throwing the papers down. "My lawyer will contact you on Monday. Do not go back to the house. Do not touch our joint accounts. We are done." Ben turned to me. The anger in his eyes softened into profound, heavy guilt. "Harper, I am so sorry. I had no idea she was bleeding you dry." Without another word, he walked out of the dining room, the front door slamming shut behind him. The aftermath of that Thanksgiving dinner was a masterclass in scorched earth justice. With Ben gone, Holly was left completely isolated. My father, a man whose entire moral compass revolved around integrity and financial responsibility, was disgusted beyond words. The betrayal wasn't just that Holly had cheated on her husband. It was that she had manipulated, abused, and gaslit her younger sister to cover it up, nearly ruining my life in the process. "You have until Monday," my father told Holly, pointing a shaky finger at her as she wept in the living room. "You will sell whatever you have to sell that new bracelet, those designer bags, and you will wire Harper every single cent you owe her, plus the interest she accrued on that loan. If you are even a penny short, I will cut you out of my will and the family trust entirely." Holly, stripped of her husband, her pride, and her golden child status, had no choice. Over the weekend, she was forced to open a consignment account. The $7,000 Cartier bracelet she had flaunted at dinner was the first thing to go. She sold her luxury handbags, her designer shoes, and her cashmere coats. By Monday afternoon, my phone pinged with a notification. It was a wire transfer for $32,450. The remaining principal of the loan, plus every dollar in interest I had been unfairly charged. But my father didn't stop there. He wrote me a personal check for $15,000 to fully restore my emergency savings. When I tried to refuse, he insisted, tears in his eyes. "I failed you, Harper," he said, hugging me tightly. "I was so blinded by Holly's shiny surface that I didn't see the heavy lifting you were doing in the dark. You are the strongest person in this family. I am so deeply sorry." The divorce proceedings between Holly and Ben were brutal, swift, and merciless. Because of the ironclad financial infidelity clause and the actual infidelity, Holly was left with virtually nothing. Ben kept the house, the cars, and the investments. Holly had to move into a tiny, cramped studio apartment on the bad side of town. With no college degree and no work experience outside of organizing charity galas, she had to take a job as a receptionist at a mid-tier dental office. I heard through Aunt Carol that she takes the bus to work because she can't afford a car payment. As for me, the suffocating weight I had carried for 2 years vanished overnight. The day after the wire transfer cleared, I paid off the personal loan in full. I watched the balance drop to zero, and for the first time in 24 months, I slept through the entire night without waking up in a cold sweat. The following week, I drove my sputtering, dying blue Honda Civic to a dealership and traded it in. I used part of my restored savings to put a hefty down payment on a brand new, sleek SUV. When I drove it off the lot, the new car smell filling my lungs, I rolled the windows down and blasted the radio, feeling a sense of absolute, euphoric freedom. I still go to my parents' house for the holidays. The dynamic has entirely shifted. I am no longer the background character, the reliable, boring foundation. My parents look at me with profound respect. We laugh, we drink good wine, and we enjoy the peace of an honest home. Holly doesn't come to family holidays anymore. She says it's because she has to work on weekends, but we all know the truth. She can't look me in the eye. The golden child finally flew too close to the sun, and all her glittering wax melted away, leaving her grounded, broke, and alone. I didn't ruin her life. I just handed her the receipts. Wow. Family can truly break your heart, but standing up for yourself is always the ultimate victory. Have you ever had to expose a toxic relative's lies to save your own sanity? Drop your wild family drama stories in the comments down below. I read every single one. If you were hooked by this insane Thanksgiving showdown, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable real-life stories.